Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Thomson Reuters, The Answer Company. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now, in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence, with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michele Engdahl, and I'm your Access to Democracy host for this segment. I'm pleased to be joined by Eagan's Police Chief, Roger New. Hello, Chief. Nice to see you. I hope you're staying healthy.
Hey, Michele. How's it going?
It's great. It's great. I'm just really glad to be doing something that feels typical, like talking to you. So I'm glad to be with you today. So a bit of a background for our audience. You've been a member of the Eagan Police Department for over 25 years, and you've been the chief since 2018. In the spirit of full disclosure, I'm an Eagan resident and I work at Thomson Reuters in Eagan, so I want to doubly thank you for your service. So let's take a deep breath. It's been a busy week with the conclusion of the Chauvin trial and just increased civil unrest that we've been experiencing. How are you doing, and how are the members of the Eagan Police Force?
You know, I would say, well, first and foremost, Michele, again, thank you for having me here today. And I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here and answer that very question. In short, we're doing okay. The last week has truly been challenging for all of us in law enforcement. Not because we saw one of our own, a previous officer that wore the uniform go to jail, but essentially just the burden that has been placed on all of us because of, the poor actions of Officer Chauvin. And there's been so much, negative sentiment from the public that it is weighing on the staff members here locally at the Eagan Police Department and throughout the state of Minnesota. But, the thing that gives me a lot of confidence is that each and every day these folks come to work, they put on the uniform and they go out and do the job to provide public safety in our community. And I couldn't be more prouder of each and every one of them.
Well, I agree with you that their service it's so important, and we have a lot of work to do as a community. But I just want you to know that there are so many people like me who absolutely respect the work you do and know how vital it is for us. Yeah, so I want to talk about a little bit more about sort of policing and police reform. Other Black people have been killed by police. Why do you think George Floyd's death captured the world's attention?
You know, the past few years, I shouldn't even say the past few years. You look at the history of policing, and I think that the law enforcement as a profession, um, we've been part of some very bad historical moments. You think back to the civil rights movement, and you fast forward today, and we hear about this thing called protest and people's constitutional rights. Well, back during the civil rights movement, there were protests that occurred, and oftentimes you see the video clips from them. I wasn't born when these protests took place, but you see the video clips, and they were mostly marches that were taking place, and law enforcement and military were expected to break those protests up. And and as a result, it has created a stain on our profession. And you fast forward to now, and you see the events of what occurred with George Floyd and his killing. The sum total of it is people go back to that event and all the events that have occurred between, from that point, from the civil rights movement to now. And, I would agree that, we've got some work to do, but I'm also going to acknowledge that I don't think that the system is completely broken, but we need to get to a place where we, reevaluate and consider what is it that we should be doing and what is our role in policing. I don't think you're going to find a leader in law enforcement, and actually many of the officers are going to disagree with that. But I think what becomes important is that we have a seat at the table when we're having these important conversations, so we can provide the lenses of the professionals that go out and do this work, and also use that opportunity to hear what our community is saying, because that's as important as well.
Yeah, let's talk about what you've seen change in your years as a police officer. We hear police reform, we hear these terms, you hear defund the police, you see people talking about police budgets and wanting to slash them. What does police reform mean to you as you've watched your profession evolve over the years? And maybe you can give us a couple examples of positive changes that you've seen.
Sure. I think this thing called community engagement we've always attempted to do that. But, during the course of my career, I would say that the biggest shift that I've seen is law enforcement's willingness to explain the why question. You have citizens that ask that why question: why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And when I started in law enforcement, it was just a simple statement of, because we're the police, or it's under investigation, and that was enough for people. But I think over time we've learned that it's important to explain that why. And you look at this past week as an example, specifically the shooting that occurred in Ohio, and you see body camera video being released. You have a spokesperson that's explaining the details of the call, and we've gotten much better in law enforcement at doing that. And then you think about the community engagement piece. Law enforcement is constantly seeking out opportunities to better connect with our community, and we're doing that in partnership with a number of companies, Thomson Reuters being one of them, to create these opportunities, whether it be for youth, adults, or citizens in our community that help create trust and build bridges between police and community members.
Yeah, so now might be a good time to talk about the Citizens Academy. Tell me what's the latest with that.
Well, interesting that you asked that question, because with all things COVID, and we had to put many of those community engagement pieces on pause. So we do Citizens Academy, we do National Night Out, And there's a new initiative that we're likely going to be looking at here in the fall that leverages the churches to bring law enforcement in and again create those spaces for healing with police and community together. We can't do this apart alone. We got to do this together, but we got to continue to seek out ways to do that. Both community and police together. One thing I want to give a cheap plug to is our Youth Leadership Academy. We're really excited about that because that's bringing in, business leaders, law enforcement leaders, and it's really trying to take something and or take a training and expose some kids to some leadership principles and get them thinking about why is leadership important or what components of leadership are important to be successful in life.
And when you say youth, what age group are you talking about?
For our Youth Leadership Academy, we're targeting the ages 14 and 16. And I know there's some question as to why are we selecting that age group. And it was something that we're really actually stealing from an initiative that the FBI does out at Quantico, Virginia. And we were just using what they said as their parameters. But, as we go forward, we're going to reevaluate that and consider, do we have the correct audience? And do we need to, start at a younger age or do it at or include some people that are, older? We already do a program here in the city of Eagan for younger kids. It's called a safety camp. And as we looked at that program, we thought, well, what is that next thing that we can do as a city and as a police department to again connect with, kids in our community? And we came up with, in partnership with the FBI, the Youth Leadership Academy. We're really excited about it.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's that 14-year-old age. There's so much going on in that body, and that's great. That's really great. So I want to talk about your team, your police force, and we talked a little bit about how they're doing just with all that's been going on, and it's been a really stressful time. Talk about how your force has changed. I saw on your Twitter feed the last few people you've sworn in are females, and that is, go girls. I love it. So talk a little bit about any turnover you're seeing in your department. Or are people looking at what's going on in the world and they're like, no, I want to be part of the solution? So talk a little bit about your force.
Well, our, in terms of turnover, and I think that's one of the big pieces that's, out in the media right now that, people are leaving law enforcement. And I'm going to simply state these are challenging times in law enforcement, and there are people that are electing to walk away from the profession. I would say that we've been pretty fortunate here in Eagan, and people have stayed the course. But one of the things that we are going to experience here, probably more so in the fall than now, is people reaching retirement age. And again, congratulations to them. It's not a bad thing. And in fact, it creates opportunities for people that are interested in getting in the field. And it allows for the department to get a fresh set of lenses on the profession and, bring some new energy. Sometimes those of us that have been around for a while think we know best, but it's been quite interesting now seeing the role as chief. Hearing some of the idea from the younger people and instituting some of those ideas. And, some of those ideas stem around social media. These young folks are far more savvier than I when it comes to social media. And, one of the initiatives that we've been talking about here in the city is Instagram as an example. And, recently some of them indicated to me, Chief, we're a little bit behind the times with Instagram. So, they're more in tune to those social arenas than I am. But that's where it becomes important to have, people that have diverse backgrounds and different age groups be part of this profession, because we all make the profession better as a result.
Yeah, that's funny about Instagram. I'm on it because I want to see what my kids are doing, but then I'll post something and they'll tell me that I'm, what am I doing? Posting something on Instagram. And I'm like, well, I can do that too. I mean, it's not just for you. So anyway, I appreciate that. And your Twitter feed, I really, I'm intrigued by how it's evolved over time, as I've noticed that it's not so much about bad actions and bad activity. Now I saw somebody brought donuts to the police department. I'm not sure that's what you want everybody to do every day, but I just thought that was kind of a neat tweet.
Yes. Michelle, I get a lot of grief when I'm in those photos with donuts or cake. I am reminded when I get home that, it doesn't create the best image for the profession. But I will say since the beginning of my career, I've never taken offense to the whole donut thing. And then, in fact, I try to have fun with it. I think it's an opportunity for people to poke fun at the profession, and I play along with it. I was actually in Puffy Creams one day, and this resident came in, and he said, "Well, this is an interesting place to find a cop," and I'm in full uniform, and he said, "Interesting place to come find a cop at," and he got a good chuckle at it. And people were looking at him like, "Are you kidding me? You just said that to this guy?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I just towed your vehicle away." And he looked out the window, and we all mutually had a good laugh about it. And it's, you got to poke fun at one another and be able to laugh. And, we have very important jobs, but sometimes we got to let our guard down. And I will just say, as your police chief, I am. I know where all the good donut shops are in town, and I won't stop eating donuts simply because I'm a police officer. So,
I'm on record now for three things. I'm an Eagan resident. I work in Eagan, and I am pro donut. So I'm with you. I want to talk about. You've brought up partnership. I want to talk about how you partner with neighboring agencies and the Dakota County Sheriff's Department. Can you give us an example or two of how you are partnering with them and maybe how that's even changed in the last few years?
Yeah. Well, in light of, what took place with Derek Chauvin and George Floyd and his death, it really, if there was never a more important time to do it, it occurred at that moment last summer, where the law enforcement agencies needed to come together and work and have a unified approach to things. I've been doing this for almost 27 years. I've done this job as a police officer, and I never in my career thought I would encounter the volume of civil unrest that we've seen, and maybe I shouldn't say civil unrest, but more so protests. And some of these protests have turned into incidents that I would characterize as being civil unrest. And it's required a different response from law enforcement. And, it hasn't all involved, I think some of the sentiment out in the public is there's mace and different devices being used against citizens. And that is not the sole intent. Actually, it's more so, how do we create a safe event for people so they can invoke their constitutional rights, but also how can we preserve the liberty of the residents and make sure that people also feel safe? So there's that balancing act, and it's required us collectively as law enforcement agencies in the county to come together and create teams to accomplish that. One of the other things that I'll mention that we're working on as chiefs is, we hear a lot about, equity and inclusion in law enforcement, and, how we, what are we doing in law enforcement to make sure that's occurring? And collectively as chiefs in Dakota County, we're trying to come up with something that we can offer that to our staff members, and it's a uniform approach throughout the county. So when residents come to Dakota County, they know that all sworn officers in the county have been trained the same way and have the same expectations from their law enforcement leaders.
That's interesting. That is, it's funny because I don't move a lot, right? My household doesn't move, right? But for some people who, if they're renters or whatever, they're moving a lot. So I hadn't considered that. That's pretty cool. Okay, should we talk about the other elephant in the room, and it's spelled COVID? So let's talk about COVID and how it has changed how you operate as a department.
Well, and that's been, again, I oftentimes talk to my predecessor, Jim McDonough, and, we talk about the playbook, and I'm still thumbing through the playbook, and I haven't found any sections that cover all things pandemic. So the past year has been an interesting time for us, and we're actually writing the playbook as we go along. But it's been challenging. The month of November, 28% of our staff members were impacted by COVID, whether it was positive cases or people quarantining because of exposures. That was a significant amount of our staff members that were impacted. We've had to, we've leveraged social distancing. We've, leveraged cleaning. We've had to create, decontamination stations, things that we never envisioned that we would have to do. We went through this drill and then we did some, preparedness stuff surrounding H1N1, the swine flu years ago. But, that there was a lot of prep for that and never came to fruition. But here we are right in the middle of COVID-19. And it's changed the way we respond to calls, some of the proactive things that we do in the community. We've had to slow those down somewhat just to minimize our staff members' exposure to community members. So it's been an interesting time. And but with saying that, I will also acknowledge what we're doing here today, leveraging technology to do something like this has been pretty interesting. And I think there's some aspects of this pandemic where we're going to walk away years from now and we're going to be better for it because it's forced, especially us old timers, to do something different. And we're learning that we can be just as successful in person or through technology as we were in person.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm Zoom efficient. I'm Teams efficient, right? I am super grateful that my family, we can stay connected, right? Separate from how do you do your job? How do you stay connected to the human beings that matter in your life? And I am grateful too, also for the technology that is, it's here to stay now, right?
Yes.
We're not going back.
Yeah.
Are there other examples or other silver linings of COVID that you see?
When you go back to working with the other chiefs in the county, I think technology or COVID-19 forced us to start weekly meetings with the chiefs, and we have a standing meeting once a week, and before it was once a month. But I think those meetings have drawn us together closer. I think, from when you look at the numbers from the flu this past season, the flu season, I think we're learning that maybe some of these COVID mitigation strategies might be strategies we need to implement going forward because the flu numbers were off the chart. I think everyone would acknowledge we don't want to make masks a permanent thing, but I think the taboo of a mask, that many of us had in the past, going forward may not be that same taboo because it may. I think COVID-19 has proven that it does have some effectiveness, and we'll see where time takes us.
Yeah, I agree. There have been a couple of occasions where I've been in a store, in the grocery store or something, and somebody like leans in front of me to get the spaghetti sauce or whatever it is, and we're both masked, and it's okay, but it's like, dang, like
Yeah.
a year ago, we weren't masked, and you were breathing on me to get the ragu. So I just, I too think that there are some changes that are probably going to be really good for us. Yeah.
Mhm.
I want to go back to the business community, and that's sort of where I come from, right? And my lens, and how grateful we are as a large employer in your town for the response, the partnership, the public-private partnership.
Mhm.
How did you know how to foster those relationships, or what's your kind of your how-tos or your best tips that other people could learn from what you've learned or what you're practicing now?
And Michelle, that's a great question. And, I'll answer it this way. Um, it, I think if you want to be a good leader, you, you broaden your view and who you try to learn from. And, you and I have had interactions in the past. Tom Walrath, I speak to quite frequently. Sharon Sells Belton, we've had some conversations. Rick King, and it's interesting, you may not realize this, but oftentimes those interactions, it seems like a simple conversation. But in reality, the chief, me, myself, I know Mac, we're learning from you folks. And we're learning how to be better leaders. We're stealing ideas, and it's interesting because there's been a number of times where I think I've been a part of conversations where it feels like others are stealing ideas from us. So it's a mutual sharing piece, and I think that we all have something to learn from one another.
Well, that's wonderful. We're going to leave it there. Chief New, I can't thank you enough for you and what you do and what your team does every day. I wish you good health and safety in the future. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you. And I look forward to my opportunity of sitting in your seat to be the host sometime.
Oh my gosh, Alan, you heard it here first. Oh, this is going to be awesome. I love it. Bye-bye.
See you later.